We talked about anger a few times yesterday.
Yep.
I wondered if you could tell me about cleansing the temple of the money changers.
Was I angry? No, I wasn't angry. Yeah. So what I did was I basically shouted out to a group of people what they thought anyway. So what was happening in the temple in the first century was that it was basically a place where the priests could make a lot of profit. And of course they had deals with certain suppliers where the suppliers could come into the temple and supply the sacrifices for the forgiveness of sins. And under the Jewish law at the time, and you can read this in the Bible actually because it's pretty close to what the Jewish law was stated in the Torah. Under the Jewish law, we had to basically have a sacrifice or different types of sacrifices for different types of sins. And of course all of those sacrifices meant some animal had to die. And that was basically the underlying premise of all sacrifice for sin. And so what happened was that the temple became like this great big clearinghouse of stock, livestock, right the way through from birds or doves, right the way through to cattle and sheep, and almost everything in between. Now, each animal that was sacrificed had to have what was called a cloven hoof, and it had to have a split hoof. So basically, that precluded certain things like horses getting sacrificed. But generally, there was a lot of animals sitting in the temple itself, and basically they had a big auditorium where they'd have like all the animals, and you imagine the stench of the place. It was pretty bad. And then they would sell these animals for an exorbitant price. So and you couldn't buy the sacrifice from anywhere else. You couldn't. They didn't allow you at the time to bring in a sacrifice of your own from your own flock or something like that, which the law did allow you to do. But they decided that they wanted to make it all nice and holy, and only the best animals were chosen. And it was all just subterfuge in the end and deceit. So what happened was that the majority of people in the temple were getting pretty angry about the whole thing, about the whole, situation, the total situation, which was basically that if they wanted to do what the Torah suggested, they had to buy the animals from the people who were selling them in the temple at exorbitant prices. And most of the time these prices were like ludicrous prices, not the average prices, but 10 times to 20 times higher than the average prices of what they could have bought the animal for outside of the temple. And so there was quite a lot of anger about this inside the average person who was there. And all I did was shout out about that. All I did was, at the top of my voice, so that everybody could hear, say, how long are you going to put up with this deceit and manipulation, basically? And of course, everybody started getting pretty angry. They connected to their anger after that, which is not my underlying desire, but they connected to the anger, and then they had a riot in the temple. And so now in the Bible it's said that I caused this riot because I was angry and I turned over the tables, but I never did, because I would never do such a thing. But it is an interesting question about anger.